John in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, listening on 88.5 FM. John, your question for Brandon Vaught.
Hey, thanks very much. A man at work recently died, and he's Catholic, and his wish was to be cremated. And so we understood that, yes, that was okay, that he could be cremated, but then the priest said, but his ashes could not be scattered. They had to be kept together, and they could not be kept at home. They had to be either buried or inurned in a sacred special place. And so then someone at work said to me, well, why is that? Because there are bone fragments of saints that people get that are there. John Paul II's blood is on tour here, or this sort of thing. And I couldn't answer it. And then a person said, well, that's just typical Catholic Church. They make up rules, but they don't follow them themselves. So I was like...
Wait, was that person a Catholic who said that? And if you got a number, I'm calling that person.
Yeah.
Really?
No, I think it was a non-Catholic or a former Catholic. And then you're like, I couldn't come up with an answer. So
all right.
When I heard your show, I thought, well, this would be a good time to ask.
That's a great question. Let me try to bite off a couple pieces of it. So the first part was, why does the church allow cremation, but it doesn't allow you to scatter the ashes? This has a long history. In the early church, cremation was considered to be part of a pagan ritual. So Christians didn't really practice cremation or spreading ashes because it destroyed and disassembled the body, and they thought it would make resurrection impossible because all of the material elements of your body were scattered. So how could they then be brought back together for the resurrection of the body? The church has seemed to sort of change this teaching. In 1965, there was a big change where the church formally allows cremation. However, the church has banned formally the scattering of ashes, and more so, as your friend rightly said, the ashes of the dead should be kept in a sealed container, such as an urn, but not in a house, in a place like a burial, like a crypt or a burial plot where it's guaranteed to be undisturbed. Now, why is that? Let's first answer that question, then we'll get to the saint question. The reason, again, is because the body is sacred. And keeping the material elements of the body together hints at this sanctity and this integrity of the body, that the body is deeply connected to us, isn't just insignificant matter that can be spread like the wind, but it's an integral whole that needs to be maintained for the resurrection of the body. It's a sign to the living that we believe this body will be reunited with its soul once again in the future. Now, to the question of the saints, I think this is a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison, because even with the saints, when we talk about the pieces of the saints being spread through the form of relics, generally, these are minuscule parts of a saint's body, like a fingernail or a very small sliver of skin that is spread for the sake of the church so that people can venerate this saint and ask their intercession. But the corpse is still substantially intact. So, for example, John Paul II's body, even though we do have relics that are circulating the world of his blood, we have small parts of his fingernails, we of course have second and third class relics, but his body is still entombed almost in whole in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And so with the saints, there's not an equivalency to scattering of ashes when we're talking about disseminating relics around the world. So that's maybe where I'd try to point the conversation. Now, again, we're talking about very minute details. If this is really a serious hang-up for your friend and is a major reason why he's not becoming Catholic, maybe try to see if there's a deeper thing that's really pressing him, especially if he makes a comment like, why is the church always making up rules that it then doesn't follow? I would maybe talk through this one a little bit, but then say, hey, did you have something else in mind, though? It sounds like there's maybe a bigger rule or a bigger doctrine that you're troubled with, because the scattering of ashes isn't a central doctrine of the Catholic Church.
Okay, John?
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think, to talk to him. So under that theory, then, they could take a small portion of this person's ashes and sprinkle it, because it's not, like you said, like a tiny little bit.
Well, I'm a little out of my depth here, but I think officially you would need permission from the church, whether that be a diocese or somebody else, in order to even acquire a relic. So relics are usually acquired during the beatification or the canonization of a saint, and they're done under extremely careful and moderated conditions. I don't think the church would permit, say, me or you grabbing a small piece of our father's body and cutting off a finger and enshrining it in our home. It's a bit different than venerating the relic of a saint. So it's a good question. I would suggest maybe talking to a priest or a diocese if it's a serious concern about whether you can honor or venerate a piece of a dead relative.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much. Hope that conversation goes well with your friend.